Hey, good day, everybody, and welcome to the Courageous Love Show. And I want to start with a couple of quotes. One of my favorite relationship mentors, I've interviewed her here on the show, is someone named Allison Armstrong. And what she says is nothing great ever happens in a relationship until someone gets vulnerable. I'm going to try that again. Nothing great ever happens in a relationship until someone gets vulnerable. And another hero of mine is Brene Brown, and she says vulnerability is not winning or losing. It is having the courage to show up when you can't control the outcome. And I was curious today how many people are actually interested in the topic of fear in a relationship, because fear is it does so much, it has so much impact on relationships that it's either something people are really going to be excited about and lean into because they want to learn more about how to not have the fear running the relationship, or they're terrified of it and won't show up at all because, hey, who's excited about having fear or talking about fear? So, right now, we're diving into that topic, though, the topic of is fear running your relationship? And so, the third quote here, the first one was nothing great ever happens in a relationship until someone gets vulnerable. And vulnerability is when you're feeling the fear and you do it anyway, you lean in anyway. And there's a great movie that I loved. It's a family movie, but a heartfelt movie called We Bought a Zoo. And Matt Damon is the star of it. And he says he's sitting with his son at one point. And his son is asking him about women and about love. And Matt says, sometimes all you need is 20 seconds of insane courage, just literally 20 seconds of embarrassing bravery. And I promise you something great will come of it. So welcome to the show today. Today is fear running your relationship? And so what I'd love to do is this is an interactive of Facebook Live. So what that means is I interact with your comments. I'd love to hear when you have ahas or breakthroughs. If you have questions, let me know. It'd be great to start out with where in the world are you listening in from? That would be helpful. I can see most of your comments here. And sometimes I don't get to see your comments until afterward because it gets broadcast out in different areas. And so what I want to do is ask you the question, how many of you would like to have more courage, connection, and compassion in your relationships? That's me, that speaks me, I do, whatever it is, whatever comment you'd like. I'd love to hear your feedback on there. And how many of you want less fear running your relationship? So if that's also true, and I'm guessing you're going to say me, let's dive in and take a look at today's show. So I'll introduce myself. Some of you know who I am. Some of you are members of the Courageous Love Show group, which is a group, a Facebook group that gets a lot of information about relationships and gets the notices for these weekly calls where I go through relationship issues, and either I'm doing the topic or I interview people who are relationship experts. So I've been doing this about 25 years. My book is Argue Less, Love More. It became a bestseller on Amazon. It was #1 in 5 different categories, which blows my mind because I'm I'm dyslexic and grammatically impaired. So for me to write anything is pretty amazing. And for me to write a bestseller, it was a true act of love. So first thing I want to do is I want to acknowledge and appreciate all of you, because I know there are a lot of other things you could be doing, and you chose to be here to look at how is fear impacting your relationship, and how can you flip that from having fear running it to having courage running it. And courage is not the lack of fear. And what are we afraid of? We're afraid of losing love. We're afraid of being judged. We're afraid of our partner saying no or leaving us. There are a lot of things that are driving relationships, and we'll look at that a little bit. But this is, by the way, that is me with a lot more hair and a lot younger. And that is a boat that I used to own with a business partner. And I got that boat, or we got it in Florida at age 21 and brought it all the way around through the Panama Canal, up through California, well, alongside California into Seattle, and did a lot of work on it there, and then brought it finally to Alaska. And that's all just saying that ships are safe in the harbor, but that's not what ships are for. And your heart, this is my fuzzy little heart. I got another one behind me, but your heart is safe if you don't get in a relationship, but that's not what your heart is for. One of the most dangerous things, or one of the most, not dangerous, most courageous things that you can do is love somebody, to really love somebody. So how many of you have had your heart broken at least once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times? I'm sort of crash dummy here. I've been doing this for over 25 years. And part of the reason I got into this is because, and thank you, I saw the heart up there. That it's great when you send me the emojis, because then I know you're out there. But I went through and I thought about this. 3 things you need to know about me. Number 1, there are some people that have charisma from a very young age. They're courageous. They are cocky. They attract all the women. They have a way with people. That was not me. That was my older brother, Kevin. Women lined up to be his girlfriend. I had relationship repellent. There's other people that have that same kind of thing in sports. So they're coordinated, they take on things, they're courageous. That, again, was not me. That was my younger brother. In fact, at one point I took up surfing and I took lessons. I had my longboard, I was learning, and I was still pretty clumsy. Now I'm 6'3" and 230 pounds, so that may have something to do with it, but there are plenty of tall people that are really coordinated. My younger brother, we were down in Mexico. We decided to rent surfboards. He'd never surfed before. First wave, he catches a wave, stands up, surfs it right to the beach, and steps off on the beach. So the thing that I did not get coordination, did not get the charisma early on. What I got is persistence. And I have been persistently trying to figure out what makes relationships work and not work. And I have been lucky enough, and I'll switch screens again, in this pursuit to be able to be with some amazing people. Now, where is that slide? Sorry, I've got, I won't flip through them again, but one of my early mentors, and how many of you recognize this guy right here? That is Tony Robbins. And he talks about how you turn decades into days. And that's by finding a mentor and understanding what they did, and you duplicate it. You don't have to be a master chef if you follow the chef's recipe. Now, this was me many years ago. And Tony is one of the people that got me started in the world of coaching and relationship coaching. And it was an amazing journey that took me there. So what I want to do is dive into what makes relationships work and not work, and why does fear have such a big impact on us? And today is not about information, it's about transformation. See, if you go on the internet right now, we've got tons of information, but information's not going to transform your relationship. So what we want to dive into we want to dive into what will transform your relationship. So, the first step in solving a problem is admitting you have a problem and knowing what it is. So, here is the problem in relationships. Relationships are a dance between what you desire most, like love, affection, attention, and what you fear most, jealousy, being left, being abandoned, being betrayed. And the problem is when this dance starts to become a tug of war. Now, this I originally got from studying with Tony, and recently he came out with the new program, and I was listening to some of the information about it. And he said a quote something like this. I didn't get it exactly, or I would have quoted, put his name on there. But anyway, today we're going to talk about that dance or that tug of war between what you desire and what you fear, what you want to avoid, what you want to attract, the possibility you want to create, and the limitations that are getting in the way. And if you want to know what drives you, one of the things that drives you is right here. If you took a picture of this screen or came back to it, this and this, the feelings we want to attract and the feelings we want to avoid, or this is where fear comes in. We're afraid of feeling these feelings. So I'll just tell you, for me, embarrassment, shame. I'm dyslexic, ADD, dyslexic, grammatically impaired. I am writing and spelling all the time, and I'm always screwing up. And I have, every time I hit send or I upload something, there's always that like, ugh, this fear that there's a bunch of misspellings. I'm going to be embarrassed. I'm going to be ashamed. Those are driving. Now, the other side, though, is I have a real strong need to contribute, to make a difference. And so that causes me to be courageous. So what I'd love to do is have you look at what is it in your relationship that causes the most fear? Is it being open, honest, vulnerable? What are you afraid of talking about? Because a lot of people today have fear of talking about, well, there's fear of talking about money, vulnerability, sex, intimacy, changes they want in the relationship, changes they don't want, if they want to open the relationship up, if they want it polyamorous, or if they want to close it down, they want it monogamous, but they're afraid of losing their partner. They want to talk about boundaries and different things like that. So this conversation is not, so it's, there is no easy button on facing your fear. And here's some of the things that we're afraid of that come up in relationships. There's affairs, jealousy, broken agreements, communication issues, lost trust, conflict, romance is gone. We're afraid of losing out and our needs aren't getting met. And we feel neglected. All of these different things, past wounds. Can we face our fears and have those? These are all difficult conversations that are outside of our comfort zone. So what are the fears that you have? What are you afraid of in the relationship? Now let me write one other thing. I'm going to blow this up here so you can see. There is this comfort zone, growth zone, and I have a flip chart on this later, and terror zone. What's happening is we're trying to, in a relationship, is we want to get outside the comfort zone into the growth zone right here, but avoid the terror zone. So in the growth zone, that's where you feel alive. That's where you feel passionate. But it is also scary because there's a lot of conversations you're going to have that are not comfortable. So how many of you have ever been in a relationship where somebody avoids all the difficult conversations because they're what? They're not comfortable. Another way of saying not comfortable, they're afraid. They're afraid of having these challenging conversations. So, what we want to be able to do is have those conversations. And how we communicate when we're vulnerable, hurt, afraid, or angry is going to set the stage for the kind of relationship we create. That's my younger brother there and his beloved wife. And they have one of the best relationships I have ever seen. And it wasn't because it started smooth and went smooth the whole way. They went through, they call it the 4 hell years. But they kept working on it and they kept getting the tools and they kept stretching. Now, I already covered that. What we want is we want relationships to be easy, and they're not. We want them to be comfortable, and they're not. We want them to not have issues, and they do. What you want is you don't want relationships to get smaller. You want to get bigger. You want to build your muscle, develop your skills. And here are the 5 stages. And I'd love to hear, where are you in your relationship right now? Which of these 5 stages are you in? And believe it or not, well, I'll tell you that in a second about the comfort zone there. Okay, the bottom, crisis. Should I stay or should I go? When you're in crisis, it's like an ongoing crisis. It's almost every week there's another upset, there's another should I stay, should I go? Are you looking at the want ads for another apartment or a home? Are you in conflict? And conflict is a constant state of conflict. It can be little conflicts over who took out the trash or who should take out the trash, to big conflicts. And you tend to get stuck in one of these places. Then there's the stuck in the rut. It's like Groundhog Day. It's the same thing over and over again. And it's not terrible, but it's not good. And you might want to have more love. You might want to have more intimacy. People come to me and say, we want to make love 2 or 3 times a week, and we don't. It's like once a month, maybe. Maybe it's once every 2 or 3 months. And it's not like anything's wrong, but it's not great. So are you in crisis, conflict, stuck in a rut? Are things good? Things are good. And when good, it's satisfying, but you're settling. And then there's great, where there's that special spark, remarkable, extraordinary. So those are the 5 areas of relationship. And what keeps us stuck in one of those areas is something I talked about earlier, is your comfort zone. We end up being comfortable even in crisis, because if we end the relationship, we end up out here in our terror zone. And so we will do almost anything to avoid this and try to stay here. And if you want to have a healthy relationship, it's out here in the learning zone. So what zone would you want your relationship in? The comfort zone, the terror zone, or the learning zone? That's a good question. Now, this is your takeaway. This is going to be a shorter call today. Normally they're about an hour long, but this one's definitely going to be shorter. I spent all day in a workshop, and so by the time tonight rolled around, I'm tired, and we've got to get, and this is a 3-day workshop. So not making excuses, but well, maybe I am making excuses. All right. So when we are afraid, what happens to us? Do we collapse, get combative, or get courageous? So growing up, I watched with my family. My dad was a mix. He was an Irish alcoholic, and he was a compassionate, creative artist. But anytime that my mom got vulnerable, it would trigger something in my dad. And he says, the best defense is a strong offense. And he would attack, and I would watch, and I'd go, as a little kid, it wasn't safe to be vulnerable in my house. And at the same point, it wasn't safe because my older brother would beat me up. It wasn't safe to be combative. So what would I do? I would collapse. That is lose win. Now, this is a picture of a puppy laying over on his back. When a big dog comes charging up, the puppy flips over. Now, it was survival for me as a kid. If I didn't collapse, he would beat me until I collapsed. And I know plenty of people had it worse than me. I'm not complaining about it. Well, I am complaining a little bit, but I wish it was different, because the truth is, I would have liked to get along with my older brother. Now, I was stuck in collapsing, and I brought that forward into relationships. That was my comfort zone, you might call it. When I got afraid, when there was fear, I would collapse. For my older brother, when there was fear, he would get combative. He would do whatever it took to win. This I call the trauma drama line. So my question to you is, where do you go when you're afraid? Do you collapse? Do you get combative? Or do you get courageous? And courageous comes from courage from the heart. Do you come from your heart? Do you collapse? Do you get combative? And that right there will tell what kind of a relationship you have. Now, I'm working on this to be more and more courageous. I work with lots of clients on getting there. The challenge is, if you don't catch it early enough, it's easy to go over here or over here. Now, there are 3 levels of triggering, and this is how afraid are you? So when you're lying in bed at night, so I'm lying in bed, I hear clunk clunk. I start to pay attention. That first level is I go to alert. Someone might say something in a conversation, someone might look at you a certain way. If you click into alert, and what alert is there's a question in the brain, should I pay attention? Is there something to be afraid of? Then it moves me up here. So I start paying attention. Alarm is when I'm asking and I'm looking around going, is there danger? And we spend a lot of our time right now in this state of alarm. We're afraid. He looked at me that way. She did this. He did that. We're in this state of alarm. And in alarm, we're asking, is there danger? And then if the answer is yes, then it goes to attack. Now, when I say this is so important. This is so important. Hold on a second. We communicate from 3 different places: our head, our heart, or our hurt. And our hurt is our reptile brain. Croc brain is what it's called. But basically, when we're in our croc brain, when we're in that part of our brain that was from tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years ago, we're in reaction, and all we can see is it's either my ally or my enemy. It's either going to make me safer or it's dangerous and I need to be afraid of it. If you're protecting yourself from your partner, they have become the enemy. It's important to know that because what's going to happen is you're going to start defending yourself. What it takes to get back, let me switch this back over. What it takes to get back down here from up here, it takes a lot. Now, I'm going to tell you a quick story. One of my clients just told me that I could tell this story. He's a pilot for 777s on one of the big airlines, and he was just flying internationally. So the 777 is a Boeing. It's one of the biggest jets it is. And they landed, and there was an upset person in first class, and she was yelling, and the flight attendants called into the captain and said, "Can you please come back here?" Now they had landed, and the co-pilots handled everything else, and he went back there, and he's going in his head, what would Paul say? What would Paul say? Now, I have taught most of my clients there's something you can do to get somebody who's in their crocodile brain or dinosaur brain or reptile brain back down here. Would that be important to know? So I think that would be yes. And here's a simple sentence. What do you need to feel safe right now? You might want to write that down. That is a game changer. What do you need to feel safe right now? Because they can't go back from their hurt, the reptile brain, to their head until they feel safe. Once they feel safe, they can start to move there, or they can move into their heart. So the whole key here is to get someone to feel safe again, or to get you to feel safe again. So he went to this woman and said, "What do you need to feel safe again?" He says he could feel the energy, the whole first class, whatever they call that room, whatever it is on that section of the airplane. They were all paying attention to this overly agitated woman. And as soon as he said that, the whole cabin calmed down, the first class cabin. And the woman just reached out and grabbed him by the arm and said, I need to feel secure right now. She wasn't feeling secure. He said he took care of that. He actually even walked her all the way to customs so that she could feel secure. Now, there's a situation where they could have said, "Ma'am, you need to sit down, or we're going to call the security, the police, whatever." It could have really escalated or de-escalated. It could have gotten way worse because it depends on how he was. He could have been perceived, because remember I said it's either enemy or ally. If you're defending yourself, it's because you think the other person is the enemy. If you're leaning in and being vulnerable, it's because you believe they're the ally. Is that making sense? If that makes sense, I'd love for you to type in "makes sense to me." And if that's an aha, I'd love to see your ahas too. So with that in mind, there are three types of relationships, or three main categories of relationships, three purposes for being in a relationship, and they'll tie right in here. And what I want you to think about is, what kind do you want? Now, the original type of relationship was all about survival. Because without a relationship, you weren't going to survive. Women needed men. Men needed each other. People needed tribe. No tribe, no survive. Now, in most parts of the world, well, actually, I'll just say in a lot of parts of the world right now, we've moved into the information age, the tech age. And what that's allowed is for inequality between the masculine and the feminine. The feminine no longer needs men, or at least not as much. So that's given them a lot more comfort, and it's also given a lot more freedom. Freedom to choose, not to settle, to actually ask for what you want in a relationship and not be as afraid of being alone, because there used to be alone meant death, or alone at least meant there was something bad, stupid, and wrong about you. Versus alone means that's the best option right now. It doesn't, alone, at least here in the States, doesn't have the same stigma that it used to have. And thank you, Phil. And then there's a third level of relationship, which is all about growth. Now, let me give you an example of that. I was married once and we were together for about 18 years. Now, she wanted more comfort, I wanted more growth. So here's what it looks like when comfort and growth go on a vacation to Hawaii together. Comfort wanted to be on the beach, reading a book, relaxing. I wanted to be um, jumping off of a pole or walking on fire. I wanted to go to Tony Robbins' workshop and hang out there. So we still loved each other, but this it was so painful that finally we ended up getting a divorce. So what you want to think about is, what do you want in a relationship? And we have all three of these. There are days if you're feeling sick and miserable, you might just want survival, or you might want comfort. But what is the dominant thing that you want? When you're in comfort, you don't have awkward conversations. You don't talk about, like, see what's likely to happen in comfort. You might have, if you want, well, you might end up having affairs or lying, or all the lying and not asking for what you really want. Up here, you might have a polyamorous relationship. It might be poly. Not everybody's poly, not everybody's monogamous. You can have whatever you want. The thing is, in comfort, you're trying not to rock the boat. In growth, you're having those difficult conversations and talking about them. In survival, you don't even care if you talk to each other. I'm not getting a divorce. So does that make sense? It's important when you're in a relationship to talk about which one of these is the dominant one for you. Now, I'm just going to say one other quick thing. If you've been on one of my calls before, you know this metaphor. In New York City, there's 840 miles of track. There's 472 stations. There's 27 subway lines. And I was back in New York with a beloved, and we're needing to go from, say, here to over here. And if we didn't have a map, there was no way in the world to find it. And even with a map, it can be a little complex. So what do you need in a relationship? If you want to get from where you are to where you want to go, you need a map. So I am going to show you a quick map. And then you can look and see whether it resonates with you. If you're in a relationship and you want lasting love, or you want to get in a relationship and have lasting love, there are three key things here. These three wings. And it doesn't matter what kind of relationship, gay, straight, polyamorous, whatever it is, this applies to all of them as far as I can tell, because I coach couples from all around the world in all sorts of relationships. Number one, availability. Are you emotionally, physically, mentally available? Is your partner available? Are you capable? So it's like, if you think about flying one of those jumbo jets, I could be really smart, I could be very handsome, I could be in great shape, but you wouldn't want me as a pilot because I'm not trained. So it's the same thing. If you don't trust your flying with someone who's an amateur, you don't want to trust your life. Why would you trust your heart with someone who's not capable? And I'll tell you capable of what in a second. And then the third thing is willing. So are you available, capable, willing? And willing is, are you willing to be courageous? Are you willing to be vulnerable? Are you willing to be compassionate? If you're not willing to be courageous, then fear will run the show, because everybody's going to end up running into their fears. Excuse me. It's just, what do you do with them? So those are the three inner circles. Here are the three next ones: your heart set, your skill set, your mindset. It's taken me about 25 years to create this map, so that I could take, basically, in my mind, almost all of the most important things of a relationship and get it on a single page. So in your heart set, with your partner, your friends, partners, lovers, and there's needs in each of those three departments. Do your needs feel like a burden, or do they feel precious? The next one over is your skill set. When it comes to skills, do you feel unprepared or well equipped? Now, I've got people that are super smart and super well trained, doctors, lawyers. They are very skilled in their given areas, but they're very underprepared or unprepared when it comes to relationships. And there are three talents. Bill, I am available, I am capable, but fear prevents me from being willing. And actually, I thank you for saying that. And what I would say is, we're all going to feel the fear. It's the courage. So it's not the lack of fear, it's having extra courage. And so part of what stops people is exactly where we are right now. So what do these skills need to do? The skills need to do three things: help you clear up the past. Because if you can't clear up the past, what you're afraid of is repeating the past, and that it's going to be in the present. And if you don't clear up the past, it gets in the present, and then what happens is there's no possibility for the future. So how do you develop the muscle of facing your fear? Now, I'll tell this quick story here. I am a whitewater kayaker, and there are 5 levels of kayaking. Level 1, flat lake. Level 2, some river, some current. Level 3, there's definitely rocks and you need to have navigation skills. Level 4, there's dangers. You can get yourself killed on a level 3 if you want, but level 4, there's dangers, you need to have a role. Level 5, it's extremely dangerous. And the thing is, a lot of times what happens is I'll be on a level 4 river, and there's some big rapid coming up, and I am kayaking with these guys who are in their 20s or early 30s, great shape. I'm older than them by a ways, and they'll go, do you want to portage around this? Do you want to avoid this? I go, yeah, I'd love to avoid it. I am currently terrified. It is way outside my comfort zone. But what I do is, when I continue to do things that are outside my comfort zone, it stretches my comfort zone. If I let my fear run me, my life gets smaller and smaller. What I have to do is build my muscles by pushing against my fear and doing it anyway. Going, I'm scared. And it's also important to know, this is an important thing, the difference between, do I feel safe or do I feel uncomfortable? So comfort is an internal thing. It's an internal issue. Safety is an external issue. Am I being threatened? Is there a danger? So what I want people to do is differentiate between when I'm not feeling comfortable and when I'm not feeling safe. When you're having an awkward conversation, most likely it's an uncomfortable conversation, It's not a dangerous conversation. So that's a key distinction there. And if you don't know how to clear up the past, it gets stuck in the present, no possibility for the future. And I mean, sometimes it's clearing up a past relationship, sometimes it's clearing up something that's happened in this current relationship. Is that making sense? So the skills you need are skills that help you clear up the past, connect and get present, create possibilities for the future. Here is the last one. It is running the show. You might want to write this in, and maybe someone will even write it in the comments. ROS stands for Relationship Operating System, just like my cell phone right here. It has an operating system that connects the hardware to the software. And if I don't update my hardware, if I don't update my operating system, it ends up with full of bugs and viruses and incompatibilities and is no longer user friendly. Now, the challenge we have in relationships is we have our own ROS that is made up of your habits, patterns, and beliefs. And those are either sabotaging your relationship or supporting it. And if you don't understand what your habits, patterns, and beliefs are, they're very likely they're going to sabotage your relationship. And the problem with all three of these is they are invisible to you. And if you start understanding things like attachment theory, stuff like that, you start to learn about your attachment, which is a pattern. And you can be the two types of attachment is pursuant and avoidant. I'm not even going to get into that. Just know that they're out there. Yes, I want to develop I'm reading one of the comments. Yes, I want to develop my courage and get out of my way too comfy comfort zone for sure, Paul. I'll have to check out your book and other recordings to begin working on this issue. Thanks for the inspiration. I needed to hear that today. Here's what I want to say is, yes, my book is great. Yes, watch the things, but I'm going to tell you, if you want to get in shape, when you go to the gym, you get a trainer. You don't get a book, you get a trainer. What does a trainer do? They hold you accountable for your commitment. They push you. So if you can find someone who's a relationship coach, that's what, if you want a breakthrough, that's what you need, is someone to help you create that breakthrough. So what I'd love to hear is what any ahas people got from the day. That would be great. And thank you, Phil, for your feedback. Here is your toolbox. If you want to create a remarkable relationship full of courage and compassion and connection, you need to have 7 core skills. Number 1, communication. And I won't even get into this is yes over here, no over here. Needs. The only reason to be in a relationship is to get your needs met. And if you don't know how to notice, name, and negotiate your needs, again, you're going to have need shame and you're not going to have a very fun relationship. Number 3 is being able to deal with conflicts. If you're afraid of conflicts, and listen, let me be clear, I do not enjoy conflicts. I still have discomfort and probably fear that comes up around them. But if you can't lean into your conflicts and learn and be compassionate and curious, what ends up happening is your conflicts end up running the show. Number 4 is wounds. We all get wounded. The question is, do you get bitter or do you get better? If you don't get better, you don't heal. And each relationship, you end up showing up smaller and smaller. Trust, dealing with differences, intimacy, those are all those skills. Now, if you want a breakthrough, there are several different ways. Well, I already showed this, but I'll show it again. This is one of my mentors, Tony Robbins. This is me when I used to work with him. If you want to turn decades into days, don't do the trial and error. Now, I did do trial and error. Now, I'm telling you not to do what I did, which is kind of crazy, but I did trial and error. It cost me 1 divorce, 4 broken engagements. I didn't ask for help. If you want to turn decades into days, follow a path. Find a mentor, a coach, someone who's been there, who can help you create a breakthrough. And the thing is, there's a quote that says it's hard to steer a car that isn't moving. So it's about taking action on a regular basis. Start moving your car. So here we are. We're almost at the end. Your option. Do nothing. I did that for a long time. Like I said, it cost me 1 divorce, 4 broken engagements, self-sabotage. At one point, I basically waited till the PONR, point of no return. It was too late. The second thing is you can do it yourself. I'm going to figure this out. That's sort of the John Wayne approach. Again, it's a painful way to go, trial and error. The third one, find a mentor. I'm a mentor. If you think that working with me would be a good thing, I'll tell you how to do that. I have to figure out whether working with you would be a good thing or not. But if not, find yourself a coach. Find yourself someone to work with that challenges you, that pushes you. Your coach is not your friend. Remember that. Your coach is not your friend. If they don't challenge you and get you out of your comfort zone, they're not doing a good job as your coach. Coaches are not designed to be comfortable. So this is a tiny bit about me. You know, I said I wrote a book, Argue Less, Love More. Became #1 in Amazon in 5 different areas. So it was the #1 book in each of these areas: counseling, couples, family therapy, marriage, healthy relationships. And just to keep me from getting a big head, was #1 in dysfunctional relationships. My video on Tantra, I was really surprised. Somebody called me at one point and said, your video's gone over 1 million views. And I had forgotten that we had even made the video. I just put it up and I hadn't paid attention. And since that time, it was up at 5.8 million views. It's now at 6.3 million views. It's Tantra Exploring Sacred Sexuality. And it's about connecting in the bedroom, so there's no more boredom in the bedroom. But why I'm saying that is what I teach is couples how to be more intimate and how to communicate better and how to face their fears, because they have fears both in the way they communicate and in the bedroom. So here's 3 things you can do. If you aren't already a member of the Courageous Love Show Facebook group, you can join us and just go in there, facebook.com/groups, The Courageous Love Show, and ask to join us. You can also get a copy of my book. If you want to get it on Amazon, it's $19.97. It's a really good book. It's lots of love. It's not a thick book. It's a thin book. It's only like 100 and some pages. No fluff. The third thing is, if you think you really want a breakthrough, you can schedule a breakthrough session with me. And we'll spend about 10 to 15 minutes together, and we'll get clear where you are, where you're going to go, what's in the way. And I work with 2 different groups. The dominant group I work with is successful couples that still care about each other, but are having a hard time getting along. And they want to bring back the love, intimacy, and understanding. The second group are singles that want to get relationship ready, but they're needing to have a breakthrough so they can get back in again because they're afraid of making the same mistakes. They're afraid of getting their heart broken again. So I started this pretty much at the beginning with a quote that said, ships are safe in the harbor, but that's not what ships are for. So take action, get back out there. If I can serve you, send me a message. The way to send me a message is right here. You go to arguelesslovemore.com/message, and it will take you right to my Facebook Messenger. That's a forwarding link, takes you right to my Facebook Messenger. Thank you so much for your time and energy tonight. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you um, on one of the future events this Sunday. I do office, it's called Relationship Office Hours. It will be a Zoom call. That way we interact. I don't like Facebook Live as much as I like Zoom because I want to be able to have a conversation with people. So if you've got relationship questions and you want to ask them in a safe, sacred space, you can get on that Zoom call. I don't record those calls. They're private just for the people who are on it. You can ask any questions you want about relationships and we'll interact and get you some answers. All right. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. I will talk to you next week.